I'm Mike White, the Optimal Breathing Coach at breathing.com. And here is a testimonial that I think has incredible insight for a lot of people. And I'm going to read it to you with a few of my comments inserted now and again. It starts out with breathing trauma, tightness in chest, and personal power. Breath coaching sessions with Michael Grant White by Alan Paul. And it starts as, I was a long-term, severely abused child, physically and emotionally, and so was I. I am steadfastly determined to improve my sense of wholeness, to strengthen any self-esteem and self-love, and spiritual connection with others. As a result of this commitment, I have spent much of the last 30 years looking for help with my breathing, which has always, since adolescence, felt tense and shallow and locked up, and eventually led me to having to give up my chosen profession. It was a wind instrument player. Over the years, I've tried every type of healing modality I could think of that might impact the experience of never being able to get a satisfying breath. I've tried medical doctors, chiropractic, various psychotherapies, including psychoanalytic, Gestalt, short-term psychodynamic, and others. I've tried body-oriented therapies, including Reichian, Alexander technique, rebirthing, Rolfing, Rosenwork, biofeedback, massage therapy, bioenergetics, core energetics, primal, Reiki, craniosacral, etc. I also studied yoga and Tai Chi. And my list was very similar. For many of these modalities, I tried more than one practitioner of that style. I also committed extensive periods of time to a number of these practitioners, many of whom I studied with for periods of 1 to 3 years in hope of getting some help. It took me about 20 years to figure it out, about 20 years. While some of these teachers and therapists were very smart and dedicated people who were able to help me move forward in one way or another, no one was able to help me find relief from my core complaint, my inability to breathe satisfactorily. Eventually, I decided to travel to North Carolina for a week to work extensively with Mike. He started by showing me how some simple adjustments in my posture could give me more space to breathe, eliminating tightness in my chest. And then, using very specific rib, chest, shoulder, neck, accessory breathing muscle release techniques, he went on to show me how to get the ribs and diaphragm moving so that the breath could expand into the increased space he had found for me in my posture. Some of the beliefs that I had held about what a coordinated breathing feels like had to be corrected. So what happens is we get convinced by people that this is the way to breathe, and it isn't, and we get stuck with that, and we stay with that because there's an internal sense that we think is accurate, and it isn't. Finally, there was a wonderful moment with Mike with everything clicked, and I was able to sing loudly and happily with no pain or straining. And for the first time I could remember since early childhood, Mike was able to get me back to the same state again, and I eventually returned home with a set of exercises and homework to do to help continue development. I'm going to insert here that one fellow said that, Michael, when I sing, plants die. That's not true, but we got him singing. I eventually turned home, to help to continue the development. I was quite satisfied and happy with my lessons with Mike. But the biggest changes became apparent when I returned home. Suddenly, conversations with associates had a different character. The movement of my ribs seemed huge compared to before I traveled to North Carolina. A close associate has commented that I seem noticeably more relaxed. My dreams are much more vivid, some pleasant, some not so pleasant. A low-grade depression seems to have lifted, and I suddenly find myself easily working long hours, whereas that was difficult for me for months before my trip. I've also noticed an odd and unexpected difference in my diet. After years of complacency, I began eating salads every day and generally eating less overall. So yes, there is a huge breathing component, breathing and weight control component. Food is still very enjoyable, but it seems less like entertainment and comfort to me, and more, well, like food. Somehow, breathing a little deeper and easier has, without any conscious effort to do so, made me more realistic and less emotionally clouded about diet. Another thing that changed immediately after returning home is my exercise routines. I generally swim every day and I do a good bit of flexibility work every day. But after studying with Mike, I'm beginning to feel that there is really only one form of exercise, breathing development. Everything else, swimming, stretching, weight training, tai chi, running, you name it, is just a variation of breathing development. For example, when I swim now, I'm very conscious of moving my limbs and ribs in such a way that the breath deepens with every stroke, so that the breath is more expansive and elastic when I get out of the pool than when I got in. I was flown to Singapore and did some training with the Billionaires Wellness Group, and while I was there, he needed to learn how to swim. So we taught him to swim. It took about 30 minutes. This is quite different than the way I used to swim. I swam a lot harder than I swim now, and there was a general sense of triumph and temporary relaxation in that, but the relaxation didn't extend to my breath, which was tight and shallow when I finished. Mike has assured me that I'll swim even stronger than before if I'm careful to slowly increase the cardio demand, such that the breathing apparatus remains relaxed. I always thought that the more cardio fitness, the better, as long as one doesn't have a heart attack. There's too much emphasis on cardio. Cardio is great, conditioning is great, but they're lacking the insight into volume. Which would you rather have, a lawnmower engine or a 12-cylinder Ferrari or BMW engine? We're talking about volume here now. You want to have conditioning and volume. Volume is getting overlooked. So we're focusing on volume, and then you condition the larger volume. But I've learned that you can do quite a bit of subtle damage to the enjoyment of your life and even your long-term health by placing athletic demands on your body that are out of sync with your breathing abilities. Amen. So breathing comes first for me now, particularly since Mike's given me some tools with which to increase my breath. I've noticed the same thing with my stretch routines. I no longer believe that there is such a thing as an ankle stretch. Sure, I do the same ankle routines as before, but the way I do them is completely different. So there's no ankle stretches, just breath stretches, extending out to the ankles. A lady came from the UK, set designer with 3 children, very busy woman, and I worked on her for several days. I couldn't crack the case, and finally, the last day I said, "Is there some sort of a ritual you do every day?" And she said, "Well, just my yoga." And there it was. I homed in on it, and in about 10 minutes, we fixed it. And she was breathing deeper and easier and left with a very big smile. Mike also talked to me repeatedly about ergonomics of my life and my easy chair, my work chair, my car seat. When people come to Charlotte, I actually show them how to begin to augment their car seats without damaging their car seats. It's very important. If you're in the car a long time, you need to fix that. When Mike discussed these things, I listened and thought he made some good points worth considering. But since I returned home, I'm beginning to feel that he was talking about something really important. I can see how slouching at my desk for a couple of hours leaves me with less breath, and that then induces a feeling of low self-esteem and depression. I guess I never noticed before because I didn't feel that I had all that much breath to protect. Now, with my breath deeper, I'm beginning to think seriously about how to improve my ergonomics. Mike gave me a number of good and inexpensive suggestions. Just now, as I sit and wrote this, I realize that I am indeed slouching and locking up my breath. I need to replace this desk chair with a more breathing-friendly chair, not a specialty item, just as an inexpensive but different chair design that I am currently using, in accordance with the suggestions that Mike gave me. So I got up and did about 10 minutes of my breathing exercises. Now sitting back down to work. It's easier to work. The words are flowing with less effort. My self-esteem is higher. I feel more confident, and life seems less like a burden. It's subtle, but tangible. No, it's not magic. My life isn't suddenly euphoric, but it's easier, less work, more filled with hope and promise than it was 10 minutes ago. It makes me wonder how many of my internal conflicts and frustrations are nothing more than the habits of poor breathing habits. And I'm going to comment on this euphoria of breathing. It can be very misleading. God knows it's incredible to experience, but what I want more for people is a grounded sense of ease and flow, a groundedness. Yes, we can go up into the stratospheres and experience ecstasy, but we need to know where home base is and come back down and land and stay there. Some people tell me to let go of the past, grieve the losses, forgive those who hurt you, move on toward life. They mean well by encouraging me to fly, but they assume that I have the wings with which to fly. How can I grieve the past and move on if my breathing is locked up so that I can't fully laugh, cry, or sing? Yeah, there's a big difference between a twitter, tee-hee-hee, and a guffaw. There's a big difference. Mike has helped me see some of the possibilities for correcting my breathing pattern, and the results of that have been simple and immediate. It feels good to breathe better, and it's very reassuring to know that there are specific exercises I can do for my breath that will help me let go of the past and create the future. Alan Paul. Bravo, Alan.